Yes. So last week, what we had, the hot topic for content creators last week, basically I summed it up like this. Is artificial intelligence, or AI, even capable of creating art? Is artificial intelligence capable of creating art? Do you think it is capable of creating art? And also, another part of that was, what does it mean to separate the art from the artist in this regard? And can art become too far removed in this way? So that was the topic at hand, kind of a two-parter, a little bit deep. And like I say, that's why it's a hot topic for content creators. I intentionally want it to be deep. I intentionally want it to be thought-provoking. You can deep dive into them, if you will. All right, so Rainer, your thoughts on it. You said, depends on what you mean by art and how much human inspiration needed to be present in them. If by just passing, and you did bring up the Turing test, which I did think was pretty clever. The Turing test, for those who aren't familiar, is basically like humans, the human, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, Rainer, I know you're here, but the Turing test is basically like if like AI can pass basically the uncanny valley test, where it's like a human being is unable to decipher whether or not it's a real human being or an artificial intelligence, or if it was created by a human being. Or another way of thinking about it is, for instance, like CGI, like the human mind's ability to determine what is real and what is fake in terms of CGI and stuff like that. That is kind of an example of the Turing test as well. Then AI, he goes on to say, then AI is already quite capable of generating art. That's what you think, huh? So there's AI being researched in China that could write long web novels or draw comics. It's interesting that you bring up drawing as well. I'm going to touch upon that in just a second. And then Jocelyn Carter came in here. I believe she was new to the channel. She's not, I don't think she's a subscriber, but she just kind of stumbled upon the video, decided to toss in her 2 cents. She said, she does make a good point. She says, AI is a tool. It's designed to fulfill a task. AI can't really create art, but it can be used to help human beings to create art. Saying AI can create art, or that AI be an artist, is synonymous with calling a paintbrush, a pencil, or other such tool an artist. It's an interesting take. They are, however, highly useful tools for creating art, and the same goes for writing. Besides, the type of AI that are used to create are a result of human creativity. So on one hand, it sounds like she's saying that AI is really an extension of human creativity. But the thing about it is, at what point does AI, because we're talking about programmed algorithms here. I mean, at what point, because this ties into my question where I talk about, okay, well, what about separating the art from the artist? And at what point does it become too far removed in this way? Because if AI is just an extension of human creativity, well, then at some point the algorithm could become so deep that at what point is it become so far removed from what the original creator intended the AI to do, because of a self-learning type of thing, that the AI becomes something completely different in and of itself. You know, what do you have to say? What's this? It's mostly a test of conversation ability. Okay, so the Turing test, and the test could be a bit in depth as well. It's agnostic about an agnostic take on consciousness. We don't necessarily know the other person's, we don't necessarily know that the other person is conscious. Yeah, see, and drawing. Okay. So yeah, let me talk about, we'll get into the drawings and the illustrations, because that's one example that I brought up too. So what she's saying, as far as like the tools, AI being simply a tool like a paintbrush, I disagree, because so isn't instruments, musical instruments. We could bring up music too. I'll bring up music in a second. But to say that AI is an instrument, well, how far removed has the instrument become? Because again, it's doing a lot more than just, it's a lot more than just a hand holding a paintbrush and putting strokes of paint upon a canvas. It's gotten a lot, it's a lot more far removed than that. You don't even hold a paintbrush anymore. You don't even have to hold a paintbrush anymore to do that. You don't even have to actually make the movements, the same type of movements, the muscle memory with your hand to create these illustrations anymore. It's all digital now. You can use the algorithms. And I was going to bring up, what did I put in my notes? The DALL-E. I'd had this conversation with someone during the week. I wasn't talking about my ideas, but I did bring it up and see what they had to say. And they brought up the DALL-E AI illustration generator type tool. I don't know a lot about it, but it's an AI application essentially that just people, it has like a search bar type thing or a suggestion bar, and people type in some subject matter and the AI will automatically generate an image based on whatever subjects you type into the bar, into the search bar, content bar, whatever it is, suggestion bar in the application. And now, would you consider that art? You know what I mean? Sure, the AI is pulling. I'm thinking about this on such a level that it's like, okay, the AI could be pulling from different types of source material as a kind of pseudo inspiration, if you will, to generate this superficial or artificial image that it creates. Is that art, though? That's the question that I pose. Is that art? And is it really, and is that a tool? Would you say that's an artist tool? Like, could an artist just say, like, I think an artist, if an artist said, okay, if an artist, for instance, used the DALL-E, I mean, if I'm to be honest, if an artist used a DALL-E, like for instance, if an author is going to publish a book and they come up with a book cover and they use the DALL-E tool as a tool to create their book cover, I mean, if I'm to be honest, as an artist, I would actually, it's not to say that I would deduct, I would take away from, it takes away from the aesthetic value of the book cover. But if I'm to be honest, it most certainly, like if they listed that in the credits in the book, that they used the DALL-E tool to create their book cover, then it would certainly deduct merit in my book. It would deduct artistic merit. Because you're not even, I mean, I think at some point in time, you have to consider the amount of time. Like, time is definitely a factor. Time and effort. I think time and effort is certainly a factor. And also the human element in it and of itself. When you take out the further away from the human element we get when it comes to creating art, I think it takes something away from the essence of the work. It kind of, I think it loses, this might not ring true with the atheists out there, but I think that it loses a certain type of, the art loses its soul, if you will. It loses a kind of spiritual je ne sais quoi, if you will. I mean, that might sound a little pretentious of me, but also at the same time, it's like with visual art, it's hard to tell. And also music. We'll get into that in a second. Rainer, what are you talking about? To add on that, if you cannot distinguish whether you're talking to a person or a bot, then to you, the difference is minimal. And yeah, and that's just the thing. And that's why, you know, you don't, hey, I take that with a grain of salt, Rainer, because this is coming from somebody who doesn't show his face on the internet. I mean, you don't have an avatar. Just saying. So a little bit of tongue in cheek there, I see. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But seriously, though, yeah, I get what you mean. That's precisely why I don't really take the internet seriously. Like people, for instance, like people who get offended on the internet at like just rogue comments in the comment section from some unknown or something like that. Like I don't get people who get offended like that or go ham with the block button on the internet. Like, you know what I mean? It's just the internet. Like how do you know that's even coming from a real human being? It could be a glowy. It could just be a bot. You know, it could just be an algorithm coming in and just talking some smack, like the little sexual algorithms that pop into the chats during live streams, you know, that type of crap. You know, I take everything on the internet with a grain of salt, especially with these deep fake videos that they're coming out with nowadays. So you got deep fakes. So at this point, I would say that as an artist, for a piece of work to have any artistic, to be taken seriously, I would say, to have any artistic merit. Not to say that it doesn't have artistic value, okay? Artistic value, even if it's artificial artistic or superficial artistic value. Like, ooh, that's aesthetically pleasing. And you just happen to like, you know, have a little Freudian slip and call it art, even though it came from a machine. You know, there was no human element involved. What was I saying? In order for something to have artistic merit to it, there should be accreditation involved. In other words, the artist, it should be attributed, the accreditation of the work should be attributed in a way, attributed to a actual human being that can be identified through some form of authentication. That's my opinion. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that that's taking it too far? Because that would kind of rule out pen names, authors who write under pen names, and which I do have my opinions about that as well. Authors who write under pen names and the artistic merit of those types of works. You're actually a smirking crab, not human at all. Smirking crab. Hopefully not a crab in the bucket. I'm old enough to know a time before the internet pretty much corrupted everything socially. And there was a rise of electronic music, digital music. And I'll tell you what, when digital music took hold and people started producing music instead of playing instruments, there was definitely some pushback on that as to the artistic merit of producing music opposed to or what they called engineering music, opposed to playing music, basically with hands-on instruments and just sitting behind a keyboard and effectively just programming sounds and creating a sequence of sounds that was pleasing to the ear through synthesizers and stuff like that. And I remember that. Yes. And auto tuning. Because auto tuning, like singing, you're not actually singing. You're auto tuning. Someone could be flat as hell, be a complete shit singer. And suddenly they're up there with the status of like a Britney Spears or something like that. With their voice, a pop singer of some sort. Suddenly they're the next pop sensation thanks to auto tuning. And that is separating. That is technically an example of separating the art from the artist in a literal sense. And I'm asking, like, how far removed is too far for it to be considered art at that point? Are they actually an artist? How many tools does it take to create an artist? Or should we all go back to just finger painting? You know what I mean? And that be the only form of art that there is, banging conga drums, dancing around fires. Just having fun with it. I thought it was an interesting topic, and it certainly affects all of us as artists.